Hi everyone and welcome to chapter 1. Let's start from the beginning. What are romantasy books? The best way to explain it is it's a genre that just blends the deep emotional elements of a love story with the elements of the fantasy world, like rich world building. We're talking political intrigue, there's a lot of magical elements to it, but at the core of it is a love story. And it's not always like a happy, easy love story because we've got different tropes here as well. I would say some of the most popular tropes would be like the enemy to lovers trope. It's the story of these two characters just absolutely hating their guts and finding their way together. Another super popular trope is the forbidden love, which could be that by, the standards of societal rules, they just can't be together, or, it's like politics that doesn't allow them to be together. There's also slow burn, which you can see in a lot of young adult books. The whole tension of the book is kind of like the main thing, so you just wait for them to finally have that one kiss or that one scene where they finally get together, that like yearning and big tension. Another one that's super popular is forced proximity, where the two characters just are on the same mission or they have to be allies for something. Another trope that is super popular is found family, which just means that while you're reading a book, especially sometimes the really big series, there could be other side characters that you just get really attached to. They're on their own journey, but it's kind of like once the series ends, it just feels like there's a hole inside of you because you just feel so attached to all these characters. There's so many different tropes, but I think it's good to inform yourself about the specific tropes sometimes. For me, for example, there are some tropes that I just don't like and I'd rather know in advance when I start a book that's like 900 pages. I'll give you an example, why choose trope, or MFM, which basically means that the main character ends up with multiple people. So it's not like a love story where A meets B, it's kind of like, it could be A meets BCD and they're all together at the end, which just something is very popular. I personally prefer the like two people romance, but it's always good to know these kind of things before you start a book. There's also a term that you'll probably come across a lot when you read these kind of books, which is called morally gray. That just means that a lot of times some of these books, especially if you read dark romance or dark fantasy romance, which are usually kind of like in a little bit of a gothic horror setting, and those kind of books sometimes have, could be a female character or could be the main male character that just makes you question your own morals. Like, you want them to be together, but you're like, is this okay? Like, am I okay with this? Or it could be that the MMC starts out as a villain and does very questionable things, but then you kind of like, you grow warm to him and you're like, okay, this is just very confusing. So morally gray is something you'll come across a lot, and I think that's what makes it kind of exciting because it has that like slight little toxicity. And then there's also different spice levels. Some of these books, they start out easygoing, like every now and then you have a little scene that might be a bit explicit, but then there's some books that can like be really intense. Depends on like what kind of spice level you're into. We've got it all covered here. There's lots of different series and lots of different spice levels, lots of different tropes. Some of it start out very easygoing and then end up with being like, oh my god, like you want to make sure that no one else is in the room. It's just a really fun genre. You just get so emotionally attached to the characters. So now that we've covered the basics, I thought I'll suggest to you some of the series that I started with, some of the series that I would recommend for you guys to start with. And I just have to give you a warning, because once you open that door, and if this is something you like, you will find yourself reading books non-stop. I mean, I started out with ACOTAR, which is one of the most classic series that people start out with. And ever since, I've read so many books. And every time you finish a series, you think, oh, I'm probably done. Like, I can take a break or something. And then you pick up another book and you're like, it just won't be the same. You open it and it just sucks you straight back in. I just love that there's just a never-ending amount of books. But like I said, let's get you started with the most important series. First off, A Court of Thorns and Roses by Sarah J. Maas. So this series, it is so popular. Even if you don't like fantasy or if you haven't read any books before, you probably read about it in the newspapers, because this series is, I mean, it just took over the world by storm. And I think it's all for a very good reason. This series is about the Faes. There's a lot of series about the Fae. It's not like cute little fairies like you imagine them. No, they're like massive, tall, beautiful, fit fairies with wings and magic powers. So this series is about a human girl called Fair, whose family is starving. They live under very poor conditions in the human world. They're separated by the Fae world by a magical wall. She goes out hunting and by accident kills an undercover Fae. So she is being dragged into the Fae world. A lot of her life, the way she's known it, is going to change. We come across a lot of plot twists, some of the most amazing enemy to lover situation. We've got trials in it, and it's really cool because the book has such a great development. There's an element of found family where you come across other side characters that you're just gonna absolutely love. And I think the first 4 books, they revolve like about one main couple, and then the last book is about her sister, which you might start out hating and then obviously start loving. But it's such a great series. It's 5 books right now. The 6th book is being written right now. Everyone is desperate to know which of the characters is going to be the main character in it. Everyone's desperate to know what's going to happen, and also this world was so loved that it's just so exciting to know that there's another book coming up. Now that we've done ACOTAR, you need to know that Sarah J Maas wrote multiple series which they call the Sarah J Maas universe. You want to stay in that after reading ACOTAR, because if you love the romance part of it but you're looking for something that might be a little bit more about the world building, kingdoms, political stuff, then you want to start reading Throne of Glass. Don't be intimidated by the size of these books, because believe me, every single book is so special that you will read through this so fast. I mean, the journey of Throne of Glass, it's probably my favorite book series of all time, because the balance of romance but still having amazing fantasy and different elements. We have different magic system. We've got different mystical creatures, whether that's dragons, witches, we've got faes. It's just a mix of everything, and it's honestly so exciting. It's kind of like, to me, the most Game of Thrones-ish series. So what's really special about this series too is there are multiple different reading orders that people do for this one. It's kind of like mainly about the prequel, which is called Assassin's Blade. So some people read it as the 3rd book, some people read it as the 1st book. Some people skip it, which I think is a really big mistake. I personally read this first, because if you're anything like me and you don't like to, you know, start a series and then go back in time, then I think you should read it first. Also for me, I found that that was a perfect introduction to the main female character in these books, because you just get to know her better, understand where she's coming from, and also some characters from this book will return throughout the series. So you kind of want to know what the deal is. And then you've got 2 books in between, Empire of Storm and Tower of Dawn, that, you know, some people read as a tandem read, which means that you can read them at the same time. There's multiple pages online that will describe to you like how to split it up, but personally for me that was just, it's just too much, and these books are really heavy, so I just didn't feel like running around with all these books at the same time. I read it in just a normal reading order, and I have no regrets. I absolutely loved it. Yeah, the last book is a chunk, Kingdom of Ash, but I literally, I even thinking back to it now, I'm just like, it just makes me sad because I'll never read it for the first time again, but it was so beautiful. So highly recommend Throne of Glass. Like I said, this also has faes in it, but this series revolves around another female character, and I don't want to give away too much or spoil or anything, but it starts out with our female character that is an assassin and then finds out that her purpose in life is so much more than that, and then she has to really fight for what is hers. And we've got multiple kingdoms, we've got multiple found family. You're gonna love everyone so much by the end of it that you're just gonna be in an emotional distressed state, because you're just so worried about who's gonna make it and who's gonna die. There's a war happening, only one side can win. So Throne of Glass, definitely highly recommend to read. So the next series, I can't hold it all in my hand because it's basically all of this. We're talking about 9 books. This is Zodiac Academy. Very different to the previous 2 series. It's kind of like cheesy TV show meets fantasy. It's so much fun. We've got two main female characters. It has also multiple POV. So you've got two main female characters that it follows their journey, and it's honestly so exciting because they start out in a human world and then they find out that they're basically the heirs to a massive fake kingdom. A lot of magic. They have to go to an academy where they have to prove themselves to the current 4 guys that are supposed to inherit the throne because they thought the girls living in the human world are gone. Now that they're back, they have to fight for their rights, and this, I would say, might be a bit more dark fantasy romance just because there's a lot of trigger warnings. There's bully romance, there's a lot happening, and I think if you're someone that might get triggered, careful, because this starts out as a true enemy to lovers. It's intense. I mean, this is an emotional roller coaster that you're gonna go through reading these, because every 4th book you're gonna want to chug it against the wall because you'll hate it. You just can't stop either, so you keep going, and then you love the next book and you hate the next book. Like, by the end of the series, I was so emotionally drained that I just wanted it to end. I was like, I just need to know what happens because I'm actually dying. It's just too much. Great series. They also have another prequel. A lot of people love it. I tried to read it, but it is a white shoes, which I didn't know, and personally it was just too spicy for me. It was too much, but it's called The Rude Boys. Like I said, if you already entered the world of Zodiac Academy, which so many people love, and you just want to keep going, there's so much more than just these 9 books. The next series that should be on your list, if you love Harry Potter, but imagine it with dragons and make it a lot darker, then we've got Fourth Wing. Right now, there's 3 books out. I think there's going to be 5. They're also turning it into a TV show because it's just so popular. It is about a girl that goes to this academy that's just savage. No one there is your friend. Everyone wants you dead. And yeah, it's a journey. I love the series, especially the first book, Fourth Wing, just because it has trials in it. You know, it's like a brutal war college. All the characters in it, it's again found family, so there's so many side characters that you'll feel really attached to, but it's all in one, a great series that I would recommend. And like I said, there's 3 books out right now and you'll just devour them. Next up, we've got the Powerless series by Lauren Roberts, and it is honestly very mixed reviews from people, but I absolutely love it. It's YA, it's got slow burn, it's got tension, it has trials in it, and it is about the elites that have magic and they're super powerful, and then you've got like people without magic. It's an enemy to lovers, it's a forbidden love, we've got slow burn, forced proximity, we've got it all. This follows our main FMC, Payden. Payden enters this trial. She has no magic, but it's a game of survival. And honestly, the 2 books are just amazing. The 3rd book is about to come out. I cannot wait. It's also an easy read because the way it's written and everything is just like, you just don't need to think about it. It's just amazing. It's just super easy to read, and I genuinely just love the series so much. I read it so fast. There's an endless amount of series I could recommend, but I want to save some of them for other chapters of this YouTube channel. But I would say if you want to dip your toes also in dark fantasy after you've read all the other series I recommended, the Shepherd King series I would highly recommend because it's only 2 books, duology. They're both super fun to read, completely different magic system. Like I said, dark fantasy, so there's a little bit more of a gothic theme in it, which just means that it just might be a little creepier worlds. The people in it is just a bit more scary. But it's also an interesting book because the first book starts out with one couple that you're really into, and then the second one kind of has one that you just don't expect, that I in a way almost loved more than the first one. So it's a book where I find the second one almost even better than the first one. And the magic system in this is really cool because it's all about these prophecy cards that give you magic, but also there's a price for the magic that you use from this card. So it's just a whole different magic system with like a little creepier background. If you want to have a duology, something to read that is maybe a little bit darker but not like a super chunky series, then I would definitely recommend this series, The Shepherd King. So I don't want to overwhelm you with the first episode, but this is for me the perfect beginner's guide just because I think they're so different but they're so special, and there's a reason why there's such a big hype around them. To me, these books are just the perfect way to enter the world of romantasy, and I mean, I flew through them because I just absolutely loved it. You just figure out what kind of style you like, what kind of realm you like, whether it's vampires, dragons, a mix of it all, or fays. There's an endless amount of books and I am still discovering so much new stuff, but I genuinely think it's such a fun journey. To dip my toes in, I started out with a book talk, and seeing how big of a community there is that reads the same kind of books just made it so much fun, because there's something about these books that you don't just close a book and then move on with your life. It kind of just like, it does something to you, where all I wanted to do is just go on a forum or go on TikTok and just discuss it with people, because it's just something that you just cannot get out of your head for days. So if you enjoyed today's video, then please comment below. I would love to know if any of you guys have read any of these series yet, which one your favorite was, what you think is the best beginner series, and I will do more videos about my favorite books that I've read recently, some wrap-ups, some books of like, do I think they're overhyped, do I love them? I think it's just so much fun to discuss these books into more detail, and I would love to get to know you guys better and get recommendations from you guys. So stay tuned, and I can't wait for many more chapters together.